Imperfectly perfect, imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly perfect, imperfect, imperfectly, imperfectly perfect, imperfectly perfect couple. Oh yeah.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Imperfectly Perfect Couple Show. I'm Kandy, and today is a special episode. I have a guest here with me today. We're going to be addressing some things that affect females, so we need a female on the panel. So I will let her introduce herself to you guys, and go ahead.
Hey everybody, my name is Kari, and I am excited to be a part of this podcast today. So thanks for having me, girl.
Yes. So let them know what you do, what you specialize in, and what type of work you're into.
Okay, so I am a social worker. I currently work in hospice, and I have been working in hospice for 6 years now. And prior to me working in hospice, I did mental health for a year, which I hated, by the way. But overall, I love being a social worker. I love what I do. I love helping people. And I truly believe that, being a social worker is my calling.
Yes. And I would like to say that you were part of the reason also that pushed me to become a social worker. Because you were like, girl, go ahead. Like, what are you waiting on? You might as well go ahead and get your master's in social work.
Right.
Don't do that psychology and when what you said, don't do that psychology degree with a master's, So yeah. I'm like, I was like, okay, I don't want to get my master's degree in psychology no more. She's like, girl, you will never work for yourself with that. You have to go be a doctor. So I'm like, okay, let's do it this way. So.
And I look at you, girl. Got that master's. Okay.
I know. So today's show is something that affects females, I would say, in different ways, shapes, or forms. So we're going to be touching on postpartum depression. Postpartum depression basically is a depressive disorder that targets women or that affects women right after childbirth, and this can be due to hormonal changes, physical changes, psychological changes, and also fatigue can bring this about as well. So we're just going to give you some insight on how postpartum depression affects us. If you've ever experienced it, you know what I mean. So basically how postpartum depression will start off, it'll start off as a form of baby blues, which can usually happen right after birth up to maybe the first few weeks of the baby being born. These symptoms are very similar to postpartum depression, and what you will experience is mood swings, anxiety, sadness, irritability, feeling overwhelmed. You may have crying episodes, a reduced amount of concentration, appetite problems, and trouble sleeping. But when it comes to postpartum depression, the signs and the symptoms come out as being a depressed mood, excessive crying, difficulty bonding with your baby, withdrawal from family and friends, loss of appetite, irritability, insomnia, as well as overwhelming fatigue, reduced interest and pleasure of activities, as well as hopelessness, feeling worthless, shame or guilt, increased irritability and anger. Also, you may have thoughts of harming yourself or your baby. I would say with this, if you're experiencing this, the best thing to do is seek out a healthcare provider if you are feeling any type of way right after giving birth. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Many women go through this, so that's really important. So I would say, have you ever experienced postpartum depression at any point? Because you have 2 children, right?
Yes.
So have you ever experienced any episodes with this, like right after birth, or would you call it baby blues, or what do you think?
So let me say this first. So my kids are 12 years apart. My son is 15, and my daughter is now 3. So with my son, I would say, I didn't really have postpartum depression, but with my daughter, I most definitely did. I had a hard time in the beginning just adjusting, to being a mom again. Like, my son is older, he's self-sufficient, able to do things on his own. And then here I go, having a brand new baby, having to adjust all over again to, you know what I'm saying? This little human being, which I always wanted a daughter, you know what I'm saying? But the plan was to have my kids, close in age so they could grow up together, but it didn't really, work out that way. And, one thing I did when I had my daughter was that I cried a lot. Like, that's how I knew that, I was suffering from postpartum depression. I cried a whole lot. And oftentimes I found myself just snapping on everybody. Like, my other son, my stepdaughter, my man at the time. Like, it was just like, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. My friends would be calling and checking on me and stuff. I wasn't answering my phone and just, it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And at first I was in denial about it. Like, man, I'm not going through this. And then once I came to the realization, like, okay, I am. That's when I realized, like, okay, I got to do something. You know what I'm saying? I got to get some help because I hated feeling like that. Because it was so hard, even with, my baby 3, like I said, and I'm still trying to get the body I had prior to getting pregnant with her, so, yeah, but like I said, I would cry all the time, and I can remember just looking in the mirror, like, feeling so ugly. It was days that, like, I would get up, I wouldn't even, like, brush my teeth or, like, take a shower or anything because I was just so down and out. And it's like, her dad would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you know what I'm saying? You said you wanted a daughter, you got your daughter, God gave you a daughter, and, like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, he didn't really understand, and I wasn't really willing to, like, be open and talk about it with him and stuff like that. So, it caused a lot of arguments, a lot of just unnecessary stuff. I'm going to say on my behalf, because I felt like if I would have opened up more about what I was going through, that effective communication, then, things probably would have been different. But, I didn't even think that postpartum depression was real, honestly. Because I used to hear people talking about they went through it and all of that. And it's just like, because I had never experienced it with my first pregnancy, it's like, oh, okay, I can't relate to what they're talking about. But then, like I said, when I had my daughter, I was like, oh my God, like, I did not know what I was going to do.
So, like, when you say that you didn't really experience it that you didn't experience it at all from your son, what do you think the difference was between your son versus having your daughter? Like, what, were you in a better mood? What things were different?
I would say, with my son, I had a lot more help. Okay. Like, far as, like, my support system and just, you know what I'm saying? My mama calling, his daddy, mama calling for the baby. Can we come over? Can we help out and do this and do that? And I didn't have that with my daughter. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then on top of that, her dad was working midnights. So, I mean, I'm the one, every time she's crying or she's hungry, I'm the one who had to get up and tend to her because nobody else was there. Yeah. I mean, the kids was there, but they not about to get up and
they can't do anything.
Yeah.
You don't know how many nights that Cassidy, that's our 9-year-old, how many nights that she was like, Ma, when I hear that baby crying, I'm about to get up. I'm going to get up. And this is like, and I'm telling her, like, before, while I was pregnant, I'm like, you're not about to be getting up Monday through Friday because you got school. I was like, fine if it's on the weekend. So she like, Ma, that's my baby. I'm going to be there. Soon as she got here, she like, Ma, all right, I got you tonight. It's the weekend, right? The weekend come, we sitting up here, baby hollering, crying. Cassidy knocked out. Cassidy didn't hear a thing. Cassidy still don't hear a thing when it comes to dealing with the baby. And it's like, you know, I was like the complete opposite, because when I had postpartum depression with my son, which is our oldest, it was like I didn't want to be bothered. I was like the complete opposite. I kind of like shied away and kind of like closed myself off. And it was just I don't know, it was just really, really dark. Like, I can remember just like not wanting the help, like, don't bother me, don't come in my space. Like, it was just I don't know. And it was like I would have a lot of crying episodes. I would cry a lot. And it was like I could be watching something. I could be watching TV or listening to a song, and I'm just crying. And a lot of times,
thing with me.
Yeah, and I'm like, and a lot of times, like, I would, like, Tank didn't know, I would hide it from him. Like, I wouldn't say anything to him, but when things became irritating to me, then I would be like, you know what? I don't like this. This is getting on my nerves. Tell so and so this and this. You know what I'm saying? It was like I don't want to be bothered. So he didn't really understand it. I remember one night in particular, I like went in the bathroom, and I think at this time, I think Gabe had to be maybe, I would say about 2 months maybe at the time. And I can remember going in the bathroom, locking myself in there, and I was screaming, crying like to the top of my lungs. And he trying to get in the bathroom. He like, what is going on? He calling my mama. He like, what is the problem? I don't know, Ma. She locked herself in the bathroom. She crying to the top of her. I don't know what's wrong with her. And I would not come out. And I think the only thing that really got me up out of that bathroom at that particular time was just like talking to myself like, girl, what is your problem? Like, why are you doing this? You know, you got people around here that love you, that care about you, that's trying to make things, you know, come together. Like, what is your problem? I was like, I didn't know. It's just like you can't really explain it until you like go through it. Yeah. So it's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
And that's part of the reason why I do not want no more kids, because I'm like, I cannot do it. Like, it's so hard. You know, we make it look easy, but it's really hard. You know, it's super hard. And it's just like, even with, you know, having like the other kids in the house and stuff like that, they didn't really understand that, you know, what was going on, especially Chris, because he had autism. So it's like, I'm snapping on him and he looking at me like,
what did I do?
Well, what did I do?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, I'm finding myself, you know, going and apologizing to them. Like, you know, I'm sorry, y'all. Come on, let's go to Five Below. Or, you know, let's do something, trying to make it up to them. Because I'm struggling to, you know what I'm saying, pull myself together. So that's why I said, like, you know, I really, like, realized, like, okay, I need to see a therapist. And I did start seeing a therapist. And I still see a therapist to this day for various reasons. And like I said, my daughter is 3 years old. But I felt like if I wouldn't have, you know, started seeing a therapist, I almost felt like I would have lost my mind a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Because I know, like, going to my postpartum checks after having my son, you know, my doctor is very cool. She's very open. And she's like, you know, after that 3-week check, she's like, how you feeling? And I'm like, you know, I really didn't want to say too much then and there, because I kind of felt ashamed and embarrassed at the same time. And I'm like, you know, Tank was sitting right there. We had the baby with us. And I'm like, I'm okay, you know. And by the 6-week check, I'm like, something not right. You know, I'm like, I know that I'm going through something. You know, I know I get sad, you know, but I didn't know, like, how to, you know what I'm saying, how to bring it to her. And it just came to the point to where at that particular time, I didn't seek help at the time because I just felt more so, I just was embarrassed. Yeah. So, I mean, like, after I went through that spiel, like, I know that did something to Tank too, because he really didn't know, like, what is going on at all. So, like, how would you say, like, you know, having your man in the home kind of affected, you know, how do you think that affected him when you were going through it?
I mean, it definitely caused a wedge between us.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, I was just snapping at any little thing. It could be a fork in the sink.
Mm-hmm.
One little fork, the kitchen could be clean, and that little fork in that sink, and it's like, well, why the fork in the sink? You used this, or you should have washed it when you got done. He's like, all right, babe, it's only a fork. Like, relax. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then I got to the point to where, like, he didn't even want to sleep in the bed with me.
Aww.
Because that's how bad I was. Like, I'm talking about some just, he like, you know what? Y'all can have the room. I'm going to sleep on the couch.
Aww.
And, you know, like I said, after a while, and, you know, once I started seeing a therapist and everything, we talked about it. Like, okay, well, you know what I'm saying? This is what was going on and stuff like that. And he's like, well, how come you just couldn't talk to me about it? And for some reason, as big as my mouth is, I just was not comfortable enough to verbalize, like, what was going on with me. So even though I don't want more kids now, if I ever was to have another child, me, and I'm going to say my husband, because that's the only way I'm going to have another child. Me and my husband, we will most definitely talk about postpartum depression before the baby even comes. So, you know what? If you start seeing some of those signs, you can be like, okay, babe, you know, I'm noticing X, Y, and Z. Let's see what we got to do. You know what I'm saying? To get you some help before it spirals out of control. So, yeah, my household was definitely, in a disarray. And, you know, like I said, I didn't really know how to process it because I had never really, like, experienced it before. So, I mean, I most definitely would say, like, to any of our ladies that's watching this podcast, you know, if you're pregnant right now or you planning on becoming pregnant in the future, talk about this before the baby comes. Because I feel like the more you know, the better off you are. That's like, you know what I'm saying? So y'all don't want to be breaking up. I feel like, you know, in my mind, prior to the baby coming, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have the baby. She going to be a perfect angel. Like, you know what I'm saying? We going to have her a big happy family. My body about to bounce back like boom in 30 days.
And it's like, that's all of the things that you pray on. It's like, you pray on it. And I would say, too, like, just to give, like, the clinical side of it, like, the physical changes that most women can go through after childbirth. There's, you know, emotional changes that you can go through. So, basically, it's basically your hormones are the estrogen and the progesterone that your body produces, and this is what contributes to, like, the postpartum depression. You may have other issues like thyroid gland issues that may drop, that may cause this to happen, where you start feeling sad, sluggish, and depressed. Other emotional issues, I would say, you know, you being anxious about your ability, whether or not if you can care for a newborn or not, because that's always a thing too. A lot of the causes, if you have, like, previous, like, mental health issues or current mental health issues, you're more prone for postpartum depression. People that have a history of bipolar disorder are at higher risk. If you've had family members that have experienced depression, that puts you at a higher risk for postpartum. If your baby has health problems or if there's special needs, that can increase your postpartum depression. Difficulty in breastfeeding is, like, a lot of people, like, don't understand, like, breastfeeding mothers too tend to be more prone to postpartum depression because you are constantly, that baby is dependent upon you. Yeah. And if you're not pumping, or if you can't get the correct amount or efficient amount of milk out of you to put in the bottle to hand off to the baby, or even if, you know, hand the baby off to somebody, or if you can't get, like, if you don't have help and you a single mother and you trying to breastfeed, that's an issue. That can become an issue as well. That can spark the postpartum depression.
I tried it for 3 weeks and I was not producing enough milk. And when I tell you I was trying hard, like, throughout my whole pregnancy, I was set on breastfeeding my baby. Like, I'm gonna do it. I don't care what I gotta do. I'm gonna be making sure. Girl, I went out and bought all kind of stuff. People telling me, oh, get these special cookies and get this special tea and all of that.
It's hard.
And I was not making
It's hard.
a lot of milk at all. And that really, like, I was hurt by that.
Yeah, because, you know, after I had Gabe, I can remember him being at the 2-week mark, and I wasn't latching him on like how I should have been latching him on. I was just letting him, you know, suck in the nipple or whatever. And, like, he tore my nipples up. Like, my nipples were cracked, bleeding. Listen, to the point to where Tank went to the health food store like, I need something, because she's talking about she may not breastfeed him no more. And, you know, I felt like a failure because I can remember sitting on my couch and I'm like, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
And he got this stuff from the health food store called lanolin. It was pure lanolin. And this is the stuff now that they kind of promote and give you in the hospitals before you leave the hospital now, because I experienced that with just this, you know, last birth. And I put that lanolin on there, and maybe the next day it was healed.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, it was crazy. It was like, but with Gabe, I was only producing just enough milk. Cassidy, I didn't go for as long, because Gabe, I was like maybe 5 months. I did him for, and then Cassidy was maybe on there for like 2 months because she was really colicky and irritable. Callie, we went 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And that's how, like, when I tell you I was producing just enough milk just for her next day, it was like, it's stressful. Yeah. And then I was working in mental health as well, and it was like, you know, having to go on breaks and pump milk and thinking, you know, things were going to be like, oh, I'm going to be flowing and pumping all this milk. And it was like, I was just pumping enough just to feed her for the next day. Yeah. And that was just so discouraging to where you can't. And it's like, even like now meeting Kaylani's demands, it's like, if she don't eat, it's like, if she don't eat from one side and I pump that side, then it's like she irritable the whole day. Yeah. And it's like, what did I do wrong? I'm trying to pump you up some milk and save some milk. So when I need somebody to, you know, it's something else. And it's like having to drink those teas and, like you said, the cookies. It can become too much because you're like, I don't want to drink that tea today. I'm not eating those cookies today. It's like,
that's how I was. I was like, you know what? She's going on some formula because I cannot do it.
And I think the only thing, like I was saying before in the prior podcast, that scared me about the formula this time around was because of all the recalls. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, well, I started out breastfeeding all of them before I transitioned my oldest two to formula. So I'm like, if I had to transition this last one to formula, and then the formula recalls, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it now. Yeah. Because it was just, it's too much. It's like, I don't know.
So how much milk would you say you producing, like, right now?
Sometimes I may have to twice to get about a full bottle for her. So maybe like 4 ounces. Okay. But like they say when they're nursing, like you really don't know, you know, how much they're getting. Yeah. So, but yeah, that the postpartum depression with breastfeeding, I see it, you know. I was even like experiencing that with Callie, our 4-year-old. Like that would depress me. Like the milk, my job was very stressful. That would make me depressed. Going back to work way earlier than what I expected. Yeah. So it was like, at the time of my job, I didn't have FMLA because I wasn't there long enough at my employer. And so what happened was that I was only able to take off just the 6 weeks, and that was it. And going back after that 6 weeks did something to me. It was like knowing that she wouldn't take the bottle from my mama when she had her did something to me. It was like, it was just a whirlwind of stuff. Like, you know, having to pump at my job depressed me. And it was like, you know, them saying stuff about me taking pump breaks put me in a whole nother mind frame. Like, what in the world is going on? Like, I ended up seeking help with Callie. I did talk to, like, what was it, like breastfeeding support through different programs in the county. I also sought out my doctor, and she helped me get through a lot of it. And it was just me constantly on the phone with, like, breastfeeding support. Like, hello, let me tell you what I'm going through today. Like, I needed somebody other than my friends that could relate to what I was going through, because it was just so much. It was depressing. It was something different. It was something like I never experienced before. But I would also say, like, even with other risk factors, if you got like a lack of support system, if you're having financial difficulties, that can bring about the postpartum depression. If you're having problems in your relationships with your spouse or significant other, if you have multiple births, like if you have twins, triplets, that can bring on postpartum depression. We also touched on like special needs children as well. Like if your child is born with a physical disability before, if you know, because typically you don't know mentally, but the physical aspect, like, you know, Down syndrome, or like a chromosomal issue, or something that you're aware of even before the baby is born, because you know how they have you get genetic testing or opt you in if you would choose to want to do so. That can depress a lot of women, because I personally know people that carried their babies through the whole pregnancy depressed, thinking that this was wrong with their baby. And then baby come out totally fine. Or they know what's going on, and then baby is born, and then now it's like, okay, I really have to face surgeries and doing all of this other stuff, because it's no longer going to be about, you know, me trying to recuperate or trying to bond with the baby. You know, you having a premature birth can put you in a state of depression as well. So
my baby came home with jaundice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they sent us home with some special light, but it looked like a briefcase. And the doctor was like, okay, well, she's supposed to stay in here, I think, for like 20-something hours a day.
Oh, my God. That's the whole day.
I know, right? And when I tell you, she did not like that little, I call it a briefcase. I don't know the medical name for it, but I'm going to call it a little suitcase with a little special light in it. She didn't like it. She did not like it. And literally,
did you have to do the put the things on the eyes? You know how they do it in the hospital?
So they tried that at the hospital, because she ended up having to stay in the hospital for 5 days before she actually came home. And they did try the thing over her eyes. And then they end up sending us home with the little, you know, briefcase or whatever, because her levels were still a little high. Her jaundice level was still a little high. She did not like the little briefcase thingy. So, like, literally what my auntie told us to do, she was like, if it's a lot of sun, just open up y'all curtains. Well, it was cold.
It was winter. I was like, put her outside.
So she was like, just open up the window and just hold her in front of the window. You know what I'm saying? And let the sun shine on her. And that's what we did. And when she went to her, you know, for her doctor, to her checkup, she was fine. But just the whole, like, the doctor made it seem like, you know, they got to tell you, like, you know, all of the risk and stuff, and, you know, the, what jaundice could cause and all of that stuff. That stressed me out bad self. When the doctor got, I'm like, okay, now, like, why did you have to tell me this stuff? Like, you know what I'm saying? He's like, well, you know, I got to tell you. And I'm like, the worst stuff started going through my head. As soon as they started telling us, you know what I'm saying? What could happen? And then I'm at home real stressed out now, because she don't want to lay in the suitcase. Because literally it opened up like halfway, and then it was a blue light in there. She didn't like it. So it's like, okay, her dad like, well, we got to keep her in there. And it's like, no, I'm about to pick my baby up and hold her because she's screaming. And I understand that she has to be in front of this light. But listen, I don't want to listen to her scream. So now I'm holding her. So now she only in the box about 3 hours a day versus the 20-some hours that they told us that she needed to be in there. So,
and that's that can bring on, you know, you putting you in a state of depression too, because when, you know, when your baby going through something, or you got to meet certain demands, or like you said, you had a timeline to try to get her the way that she needed to be. And it was like, you know, that's a lot. That can be a lot on a mother, you know. So I know, like, even with, I would say with this time around with me, like, I have gotten like in sad, kind of sluggish type of moods. And I know this time around, it's like because I'm tired.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though I have the help and, the support and all of that, it's like the fatigue when you can't get enough rest.
Yeah.
And then you're constantly up with the baby. Like, don't get me wrong, Tank is up too. But he's up on his end, like, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Because he's like, he'll change the diapers, we'll alternate, go back and forth, But it's like, she still solely depends on me unless I got the milk to give him, like, here, feed her.
Yeah.
But then the milk that I got, I'm like, I'm saving that milk for when somebody else has to keep her or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's taking a toll on him as well. Because, like, I'm telling him, like, the first week that she came home, Tank was doing a lot of running back and forth. And I'm like, you can't be doing all of this running. Like, I need you here. Like, it's making me sad because you're not here. And then he like, what? Like, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, it created like a little bit of a wedge in the beginning. I'm like, I need you here. And then at the time he didn't understand it. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, even though I've had 3 other kids and this is our 4th, I'm like, I'm a new mother again.
Exactly, yeah.
And, just the demands from how this baby is, like, this baby, I feel she's extremely, like, clingy to me, even though I'm breastfeeding in comparison to my other children when they were here. Like, she's like, I want mama.
Yeah. And
that can really do something to you mentally, like, to know that you can't step away to get a break. You don't want them crying and hollering, and it's like, I need you here. So, like, my other children can only do so much.
Yeah.
I need you here. And so he kind of was like, okay, I get it, And on his end, he's like, you got to do stuff too. Like, you stand in your room all day. Like, you can't stay in your room all day. You got to get out and, get up, walk around the house. Even though you can't physically, go anywhere and enjoy it right now. He like, come out of the room. And I'm like, I had been in the room for like, when I looked up, it was like 2 weeks that had went by. Yeah. Like, just in my room. Like, I would come out enough time to shower, brush my teeth, and then go right back in my room, smothering myself with the baby, and I didn't really realize it until he pointed it out, like, hey, this is doing something to me too. Like, I need you out of the room. I need you, do something to your hair. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, I was in there, like, in a slump. Yeah. And it's like, you don't realize it until somebody else points it out and like, hey, it's something you need to switch up. Yeah. Going to my doctor, I'm like, yeah, I'm a little sad. I am. I'm like, and I didn't know, like this time around, I felt more comfortable to, like, come out and say it because I'm, like, being in the field and kind of dealing with people that you see that went through certain things. And I'm like, now I'm not ashamed to be like, yeah, I know if I need help and if I need further help, I'm going to ask for it this time. Yeah. So, yeah, it's something different, I tell you that. Yeah. Yeah.
And even the men, like, you know what I'm saying, our significant others, like, if they can educate themselves on it without us, you know what I'm saying, having to tell them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know that's something that your woman could possibly experience, take the initiative to do a little research on it. That's true. You know what I'm saying? Because, when you was sitting up there saying, like, how you was stuck in your room and stuff, I was like that too. And I just was like, even when I, like, went to take a shower and stuff, on the days that I did get up and take a shower, because I'm telling you, I was out of it. I just was so unhappy. Like, especially with my body. I'm like, oh my God. My boobs sagging. Okay. I got like 1 million more stretch marks. Oh my God. Rolls on the side. Like, I didn't even want to look in the mirror some days. And it's just like, oh my God. Like, when my son, my body snapped back like that, it was like, okay, girl, you just had a baby a month ago. Like, yes. And it's just like, okay, my daughter 2 months. She 4 months. She 6 months. She 8 months. The weight's still there. Like,
it's
okay,
like, I don't know. It seems like it's a difference, like, with the hormones or something. Like, the girls kind of do something a little bit more to you than what the boys do. Yeah. Because I'm like, I can say, like, after having Gabe, I was kind of a little ashamed of my stretch marks,
Yeah.
a little bit ashamed of a little fupa that had developed, but it was like, but I still felt good. You know, he grew my foot a half size bigger, and I'm like, okay, I got to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, but it was like that too, and I was going to touch on the hair loss.
Yeah.
Because a lot of women don't know, like, prior to having a baby, like, the physical changes that it takes on your body. And hair just be coming out.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could be taking your prenatal vitamins, you can be doing everything, getting your hair done, keeping it moisturized, conditioned. And it's like those edges just start slowly thinning. And thinning and thinning, and then you next thing you look
my
up,
edges
and like,
was already thin, and then
you like,
I hair was coming out.
You're like, I can't afford this. Like to be, I'm like, I can't afford to not be losing my to be losing my edges now. And it's like, you know, if you already, like you said, had prior issues with how your hair was, it was like, do you know what that can take on? Do you know how that can make you feel physically, like mentally? Like now I'm gained 2 dress sizes and now I'm bald headed. Like it's you know, it's like it's something different. And I agree.
Even started looking into like getting like a mommy makeover. Like before I started like working out and everything, because I was just so unhappy. And then like I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, her dad wasn't even looking at me. I felt like he ain't look at me the same and stuff like that. He's like, well, it ain't because of your weight gain. It's because of your damn attitude. Like, you know what I'm saying? But again, it was me dealing with the postpartum depression and just, you know, not being willing to just open up and talk about it with him. You know what I'm saying? So don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Like, it's help available. Like, if you need the help, seek the help. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's no point of walking around down and out when there's so many more more resources available now than when I had my baby 3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So it's nothing to be ashamed about. And I know, you know, specifically for us Black women, you know, we don't like talking to people about our problems really because we feel like we can handle them ourselves. And even as a social worker, counseling people every day, listening to other people's problems, I could not fix what I was going through. I couldn't fix my issues with postpartum depression myself. I had to seek a professional.
And sometimes you may need to be on medication as well. Like, sometimes just talking to a therapist may not be enough.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you may have to get, like, you know, a prescription to kind of help you throughout the day, to kind of help you cope with your mood. And, you know, it's nothing wrong with, you know, being able to admit that, like, okay, like, this therapist, this not working, you know, especially if you having thoughts. Yeah. And, you know, you don't want those thoughts to continue of thinking of hurting yourself or hurting your baby or, you know, just the circumstances that may, you know, change the household and what's going on. So it's like you can't, I don't want to say that you can't, because many women can. Yeah. And you do. And you will feel a certain type of way if you experience it and go through it. Yeah. So it's like when you know, and if you can recognize that things are starting to spiral, it's like don't be afraid to seek that help. Yeah. So
I agree.
Yeah. So it's like with this postpartum depression topic, it's like really a sensitive subject, and you know, we are not in the position to give, you know, advice to, you know, well, from it to come from us directly. You know, the only thing that we can really tell you to do is to seek our help and get the proper resources that you need. So if any ladies, like Kari said, are experiencing any type of postpartum depression, don't feel afraid or ashamed to reach out. So
they even got like support groups and stuff, like a lot of them, and if utilize them, like if you need them, utilize them, because you never know. You know what you're going through could help the next person. You know what I'm saying? You never know who you're gonna connect with. So you don't have to go through it by yourself.
And that's the thing too. You will feel alone. You will feel by yourself. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, if you got a good support system to kind of like put you in check. Yeah. To kind of let you know, like, hey, this is changing. This is not the same. Like, don't be afraid. So, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about these type of things, you know. Would you say, like, do you have, like, any advice if you have, like, that mother that is out there, you know, besides seeking professional help, of course, but what advice would you say that you could give somebody that's not wanting family around or not wanting to be bothered or secluding themselves, or, you know, what do you think, like, the first step would be for a mother that really is like, I'm not being bothered with no professional help. I'm not being bothered with anybody right now. What would you say?
I mean, if you're going to be like that, because that's how I was. I'm not going to lie, that's how I was. But honestly, what helped me out, or, you know, what made me want to seek a therapist was that, you know, I felt like I got to the lowest point that I could possibly be at. And I just started praying. Like, for some reason, when I cried, I always cried the most in the bathroom. Like, you know, taking a bath and stuff like that. And, you know, one day I just told God, like, God, I'm not myself. Because anybody who knows me personally, they know I'm always laughing. I'm always joking. I'm always bubbly. Like, if you down, Kari gonna be the one to come say, girl, get up. You know what I'm saying? And I just was down to my lowest. And like I said, I wasn't letting people in. I wasn't answering my phone. I wasn't letting friends come over and stuff. I started praying. And I was just telling God, like, God, I don't want to be like this. You have to help me. This is not me. I don't know what's going on. And like I said, I had one for a checkup. And I just started talking to my doctor about it. Like, okay, like, I think I'm experiencing, you know, postpartum depression or whatever. And he told me, like, call a number on the back of your insurance card and get a list of therapists, you know, that you can talk to that accept your insurance. And that's what I did. And like I said, 3 years later, I'm still seeing a therapist, and so much has happened in that time. Even, you know, after I was done dealing with the postpartum depression. And I'll say this, like, I was dealing with postpartum depression and a sick mom. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was in the process of losing my mom. So, like, when I say I was on the verge of, like, literally losing my mind, it was really God that kept me. Like, I mean that, like, wholeheartedly. So, yeah, pray about it. Like, and I understand, like, I don't have that many friends. Like, you know, I got a lot of associates. I don't have that many friends because, you know, you be thinking people are your friends, and then as soon as you confide in them, they go back, they tell all your business.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can always talk to God. And I noticed that the more that I prayed, the more that I talked to God, like, I got that confidence back to, you know what I'm saying, to be able to even open up with a therapist. Because I want to say, honestly, like, the first 2 sessions, I wasn't really saying much. Like, she had to really, like, tug at me to get the information out of me. But again, like I said, I never stopped praying, and I was just like, okay, God, I want to get back to myself, and you know what I'm saying, you got to help me, because I know I can't do it by myself. And the more that I prayed, I feel like the more that I opened up, and I, you know, I came out of that thing, and I was able to find myself again and just really get back to the bubbly, happy person that I know I am. Like, you know what I'm saying? So again, you know, talk to God, you know, and if you're not a religious person, then I honestly, I don't know what to tell you. But for me, it was talking to God. It wasn't confiding in my friends. It was, you know, talking to God. Because even your friends, they could tell you what they would do, but if they ain't never went through it, it's like they just guessing or just trying to say what they think you want to hear to make you feel better. And it's like, you know what? None of that is really going to make you feel better.
And some advice can be bad advice, just depending on the person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, that's good advice as well. So seek something, if you're not a spiritual person, seek something within that makes you happy.
Yeah.
You know, it can be many of things. You know, we can go down a list of different avenues that, you know, people get into, from, you know, aligning their chakras to just being in tune with Mother Nature, hugging a tree. I mean, it's plenty of things that you can do and seek within to try to get yourself back to yourself before you say, or before you have enough courage to come out and say, hey, I need this help. So I think this has been a really good topic.
Me too.
I think that we got out a lot of things that people are probably, too afraid to talk about, that they're, maybe soul searching and don't know necessarily what to do. So I think this was great. Me
too.
I really am so happy to have you as our first guest, my first guest on here. This has been amazing. This is something that we had been saying that we had been wanting to do for a while now, kind of switching it up. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I'm going to come through from a girl now.
So, because when we have other girl talk and stuff, we're going to ask you to come back.
All right, and I'm going to be right over here.
So, I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome, girl. You're welcome.
So, that concludes, you can reach our show via Facebook, Instagram. Please like, share, comment. You can also let out any emotions or any thoughts at 1-844-U-VENT. That's 1-844-968-8368. Also, you can send us, your thoughts as well as on our Gmail account at imperfectlyperfectcouple@gmail.com. So that concludes. I want to thank Kari once again for coming on. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
We love you guys out there. We appreciate your patience because Lord knows I haven't had too much with myself. So we appreciate it. And we'll continue to keep you guys posted with many more topics and upcoming things. Thank you guys. We love you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Imperfectly perfect, imperfect.